We're on top of Lookout Mountain in the beautiful valley which metropolitan Phoenix is located. And it's probably a good time to talk about why we're here. We climbed this small mountain here to get a good view of this whole area because we came down here this winter to look for a new home. In the summer, if you were watching, we did a large road trip through 5 states, and we actually really wanted to come to Arizona. And it was really the end destination of the plan, but back then it was summer, it was extremely hot, there was an outburst of the virus here, and we turned to Colorado instead. And we didn't come to check this out and see how livable it is. And this time we dedicated the entire 3 weeks for this purpose. We mentioned we're looking for a new place to move, so what is the criteria that we're looking for?
So we have several things in particular. One is probably walkability. And obviously we're not expecting the same walkability that we would get in the city, like in Seattle. Seattle is like ultra walkable. But in Scottsdale in particular, we really like how each neighborhood seems to have a lot of walking paths and green space.
That's true. This is huge for me. I'm from Europe and I've never lived in a place that is not walkable. I don't think it's healthy and it's definitely not that fun. So this is also what has kept us in Seattle for so long, because it is a walkable city. In the USA there are not so many. Here we're pleasantly surprised that they have actually put a lot of thought into making their walking paths, and because the weather is so good, they made sure that people can walk outside. And from just about anywhere in Scottsdale you can catch a trail and you go places, and it's not like most places where you have to cross these giant roads and lots, and it's not nice.
Another thing we found out was that a lot of the parks in Scottsdale, Arizona are actually built around these washes where the water actually drains whenever there is water. So I'm guessing probably during the summer whenever they have big rainfall. And so the washes are centered around parks, which is really smart because it keeps that area kind of green and it makes a lot of recreational area for people to enjoy.
So yeah, that would be the second thing that we're looking for. Seattle has a lot of parks, over 400 of them, and they're really good parks. It would be really hard to move to somewhere that doesn't, like most of Europe or Asia. And we are verifying this. Actually, there are many good parks here in the Phoenix area, and we have been enjoying at least 2 a day just to make sure we can keep living the way we like. And what you said is really smart what they've done. They've doubled their parks as flood prevention, and this way it actually even irrigates at some times of the year, and the rest of the time you have more parks. It's just really smart.
So obviously it's not as many parks and they're not as pretty as they are in Seattle, but we'll take any kind of green space and places that we can, you know, just relax and do things other than work and enjoy ourselves. Another
really important thing for us is infrastructure. We are still highly dynamic. We work, we have businesses, we drive around, we want to have a lifestyle that is active, and we fly a lot. So we need a place with really good infrastructure, with good roads, with good airports near you, and all those things that you are used to in a main city.
In fact, we were really surprised to find that Phoenix even has a light rail system. And in a lot of ways, it's more advanced than the one in Seattle, even though it was started around the same time that ours was. And right now it actually goes from Mesa to Phoenix, and there's plans to expand it even further.
Yeah, it has a lot more stops than Seattle's, and their second line is about to go operational, I think, in 2024. This is a good sign because it means they're working on the big problem. This is a big metropolis. It takes a lot of time and thought and wealth to make a good transit system, and the fact that it's nearing completion is actually very good. Otherwise, if we were to move now, it would take decades.
Yeah. Although if we end up in Scottsdale, we may not be taking as much advantage of that light rail, but still, it's good to know that it's here and that they take public transit pretty seriously. That's
right, very important to us. And the airport is not far from here. It's a little bit south of Phoenix and near a place called Tempe. And it's a straight shot pretty much. It's what, 25 minutes drive from where we're staying to the airport. And we haven't been stuck in traffic all that much. That's a big thing for us.
Yeah, so traffic, it's kind of related to infrastructure. I feel like they did a better job in planning out the city and making sure that cars flow through, because this metro area is so much bigger than, say, Seattle. They've planned ahead, so all of the big major roadways that we've seen have at least 3 lanes of traffic in each way.
Yeah, it's a bigger city. About 5 million people live here in this metropolis. In Seattle, it's more like 3.8 or something, and yet Seattle has horrendous traffic and there's no hope for it to ever be fixed. However, we've been driving here and we have not been stuck once in a jam.
Yeah.
So that's a really good sign.
Yeah, and maybe this is a separate point as well of just like there's space here to keep expanding. In Seattle, the reason why they can't really do much about traffic is that they've built the roads pretty tight and there's actually nowhere else to expand those roads. Whereas here, again, they planned ahead and made those roads pretty wide. And if they wanted to, there's just so much extra space to keep expanding.
That's true. Here's a sprawl. Seattle is constrained between the ocean or the sea and the mountains, and also the people that are running it are incompetent. Another thing that we're looking for is the type of governance that doesn't let everything get run to the ground.
Yeah, and I've been trying to do some research about the local politics here. I think that's one of the hardest things to get your head around, because news tells you one thing, but then you really need to be in touch with community groups to get a real sense of how things are run and what the actual picture is. But I would say just by looking at the infrastructure so far, the lack of trash and tents and boarded up buildings, that seems to be a good indication that things are run better here than in Seattle. Which isn't to say there aren't problems. I'm sure there are some problems here, but they just seem to be not the same type that we're used to in our city.
Yeah, that is true. It really kind of is like a day and night difference coming from Seattle to here. And Seattle was okay, but in recent years it just got totally run to the ground. There's trash everywhere. There's just so much crime. Nobody's doing anything about it, and that's the bigger problem. It's still worsening. It's actually not correcting. And we need a place where they are careful and are not allowing society and everything to just crumble, and the law and pollution and all these things that are now notorious in Seattle. Just the other day in the grocery store, we tell the girl we live in Seattle, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And then she says, "Isn't Seattle gross? Are there still riots?" And yeah, all those things are true, and we don't want to live near them anymore.
And it's not all over Seattle, but it's still a pretty prominent problem. If you just drive through downtown Seattle right now, like in late 2020, you'll see the problems there. We drove through Phoenix and we didn't see any of those problems. So that seems to be a pretty good indicator, considering that Phoenix is the capital of the entire state.
The next really crucial point for us is we want a place with a good, dynamic, thriving economy and jobs that we can take part of. For example, I work in tech. I want some tech business to be around so I can continue doing what I do. And I think this place actually offers what I'm looking for. I don't want to disclose too much. And how about you and your business?
So previously, like in Seattle, I was doing a lot of photography for events and for hotels and restaurants. I'm not really sure if I want to continue doing that. And that's actually the nice thing about moving somewhere new. And if you have the luxury of doing so, you can consider starting over and focusing in on things that you actually want to do. But if I wanted to continue doing those things here, then there's plenty of resorts. It's a really big tourism town and lots of real estate because of how big the metro is. And we've been looking at a lot of the real estate listings. All of those houses for sale need photos. And with the events, they go along with the resorts. There's also a big convention center downtown, so definitely a lot of opportunities to keep doing all of that.
So yeah, from everything that we've seen, the place is very well off, and especially Scottsdale, but the metro itself is not at all hurting or starved of anything.
Yeah.
A big tech center is being developed down in Tempe, which is adjacent to Scottsdale. If we were to move to Scottsdale, I could easily go to work down there and work in that corporate center. And you can start hitting up all these hotels, resorts, and real estate listings for all these amazing houses, which I think brings us to our next topic.
Which is what?
The housing.
Oh, okay.
And here's the next topic, which perhaps is one of the main ones, and that is the quality and the price of housing in this metropolis is far superior than what you get in Seattle.
Or just anywhere on the West Coast right now. All those coastal cities, it's extremely expensive. At this point, we're looking within our price range, and it's like, man, if we traded in our current 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Seattle, we could get so much more space and higher end fixtures, and we would be not as urban as we are right now, but we're actually okay with that.
That's true. Given that Seattle's urban experience took a terrible turn, we are fine with going a little bit more suburban, in particular if that suburb offers a lot of nice amenities and lifestyle. And Scottsdale is exactly such a place. And you're right, if we just were to trade our condo, we could get a great house in Scottsdale.
Oh yeah.
And that's good, because we even have 2 properties to trade, but one is enough to get us going right now. And then we would rent a place in Seattle, and we could use a little bit of the difference that generates and even upgrade. So it is looking like a very viable and attractive option for us in terms of housing as well.
Yeah, when you add in the housing plus, the prospect of jobs in the area, and Scottsdale is not a small town. So right now, some people are like, oh, I have to get out of the city and move to a smaller town to find affordable housing. And for us, it's like, well, Scottsdale would be an upgrade in a lot of ways.
Exactly, it would be an upgrade in so many ways, including the lifestyle, truly, and yet you get more for your money, and you still have where to work.
Yeah.
So for us, this place makes sense.
So the next point of why we're looking at Arizona is the weather. And some of you may not agree with us on that, but for us, we've been living in the Northwest where it's wet and rainy, and we've both been there for, combined over almost 20 years. And we're just done being wet, so we kind of want the polar opposite of Seattle. And that would definitely be Arizona.
That's right, they are polar opposites. One is very wet, very dark, it's chilly. Here it's very hot, very dry, very sunny. And I've heard many people say this after a decade or two in Seattle, you just crave sunshine so much.
Yep.
The seasonal affected disease is real. It's not a joke, it's not being soft. It's actually very real. We have done our best to really not get affected by it by living every year, by skiing and staying active. But still, you wake up, it's so dark, it's so terrible, and you just don't want to do anything with yourself. We came here, we felt like new people.
Yeah.
Like different people.
Like the sun makes such a huge difference in your mood and just everything. So if you have, any kind of depression or something, then go somewhere sunny. It does so much for your mental health. And not only that, but also I feel like this lockdown this past year really exacerbated this feeling of needing to leave, because we really felt like, hey, we've done everything we've ever wanted to do in Seattle and then some, and we're really ready for a complete and total change.
Which brings us to the next point. Is we like to stay very active, and we go places almost every day, every weekend. We have to do something. We're just the kind of people we are, and we have done everything in Seattle. And whatever we replace it with, though, has to have a lot around it. Therefore, it has to be large, it has to be diverse, it has to be saturated with many things to do.
Yeah, and at first we weren't sure if Arizona was going to meet that requirement until we stayed here. That's part of the reason why we're staying here for 3 weeks and staying put in one spot, so that we could really get to know the area and see what's around it. So yesterday we got to go outside of the metro and see what's around it. Turns out there's a big national forest, the Tonto National Forest, and it's actually pretty diverse, surprisingly.
And it's not just one on the map. I see 3 national forests. There's also Coconino, which Sedona is part of, and then on the other side I think it's called Preston. So there are 3 forests. This Tonto is the closest one. It's very large, and there are a lot of water bodies in there. So we're not actually going to be completely in the dry desert. There's a lot of water, rivers run through here, and then you start thinking more broadly. We have taken every trip that time allows in Seattle, right? If you have a weekend, you've done this and that. If you have a week, you've done all that. And
we've gone actually everywhere.
Exactly. But by switching region, now this opens a whole lot of options.
Yeah, and again, I have to take it back to that lockdown of like this past summer, we were confined to Washington. So we did literally everything else there is to do in Washington that we haven't done yet. So at this point, we're like, we've seen and done everything in the state. We love it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. And at least now, if we were to go back to Washington, we know exactly where to go because we've been to places that we really love. But being down here, it just broadens our range and we can go to totally different areas that we haven't been to yet.
That's right. We're already looking at the map and we're thinking, so we can do a weekend in San Diego, we can get on a plane and go to Cabo. Yep. There's a direct flight to Costa Rica if you have a week.
We can go to Colorado, we can go to New Mexico, and actually really close by, 2 hours away, is Flagstaff. So if we really need snow and a colder climate during the winter, then we can still get that from here from Phoenix.
Yeah, that is all totally true. So it turns out, yes, this is a very well-positioned place, and there's a lot to do here. And we won't exhaust it. We are thinking in terms of years ahead, right? And we know if you go to a small place, you've seen it all in a weekend, right? And here in a metropolis, in a whole new region, with California next to you, with Mexico next to you, and the mountain states next to you, that's a lot for our taste of lifestyle. So in closing, we should mention the way we're looking at this is really suited to our lifestyle. And in particular, we are very much into the outdoors. We're into making videos. We're into traveling a lot. And it's a very active lifestyle. And it has to do with adventure tourism a whole lot. You know, climbing mountains, rafting down rivers, whatever you can think of that has to do with kind of pushing the limits and getting out there. And this is why we're choosing to stay west. We actually haven't looked at any other states that aren't in the west. We did look at the entire west, and we have a pretty good idea what each state in the west is like to live in. We also went to Florida, and you also are from Hawaii, so we've been there a lot. And we've actually ruled out the East Coast because it's too flat. And we don't want to be in Hawaii because it's too small. And we have various reasons, and we'll make a whole video on the places we're not choosing and why we ruled them out. However, it seems like here it can match all these things, and we can be quite satisfied. Now, the only thing that remains is all the metrics and criteria we just mentioned. We need to verify that they're true. So if you follow along for the rest of this trip, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to test all these hypotheses and see whether this indeed fits in each of these cases.
And in fact, if you guys have any ideas about what we should do here, or if you disagree with any of the points that we brought up, then please let us know, because yeah, this is kind of an open dialogue. We're still exploring our options, and right now we think Scottsdale and the greater Phoenix area is a good choice, but perhaps it's not. Perhaps there's a better place out there. So let us know in the comments if you have any ideas.
And in the next 3 weeks, we will explore based on your suggestions and what we're able to find out around here.